Internet headlines. 3 members of a defunct pro-independence group are jailed for up to 6 years for conspiring to commit terrorism. Customs arrest 4 men in probe into fake diamond scam involving $500 million. And senior citizens are told that they will lose their fare concessions next year unless they switch to JoyYou cards.
Three members of the now-defunct pro-independence group Returning Valiant have been sentenced to up to 6 years in prison. HOYIBC, Chang Ho-young, and Kwok Man-hee had earlier pleaded guilty to conspiring to commit terrorism 2 years ago. Chang and Kwok also pleaded guilty to the alternative charge of conspiring to cause explosions. High Court Judge Alex Lee said the trio seemed to be good students before the social unrest in 2019, but had then participated in an evil plan. Lee said although 23-year-old Chang was the oldest of the three, he helped Ho, who's now 19, recruit members for the group and provided him with information on manufacturing bombs. Without Chang, Ho would be all talk, according to the judge. Lee said Ho was the mastermind of a plot to create chaos in the city. The judge reduced the sentence for Chang and Kwok as they had offered assistance to prosecute Ho. Chang was sentenced to 6 years behind bars and Kwok to 2.5 years. Ho was jailed for 6 years after his term was reduced for providing useful information to the prosecution. Janice Low, Cable News.
Customs officers have arrested 4 men on suspicion of laundering $500 million by exporting synthetic diamonds to India, allegedly claiming that the gems were genuine. Superintendent Ben Yeung said this is the first case of its kind detected by his department. Hong Kong officers liaised with their Indian counterparts and found that the syndicate exported the fake diamonds 130 times in 2021. By claiming that the items were natural diamonds, the syndicate reportedly charged $500 million, 100 times more than their actual value. Yeung said it's difficult to differentiate between natural and synthetic diamonds with the naked eye. Detection was harder because the precious stones were small, making them easier to be exported and less likely to be discovered. The 4 suspects have been released on bail. Their savings of $5.7 million were frozen. Customs officials in India arrested 4 people earlier in connection with the same case. Separately, Hong Kong Customs have seized $82 million worth of illicit cigarettes. Officers arrested a 21-year-old man at sea for allegedly smuggling 9 million cigarettes. In a follow-up raid, another man was arrested and 1.3 million illicit cigarettes were confiscated in Lam Tin and from an industrial unit in Taiwan. Janice Yu, Cable News. Three men have been remanded in custody when they appeared in Fanling Magistracy charged in connection with the death of a mainland student who was studying for a master's degree in Hong Kong. Kwan Wing-yin, Chen Ka-fu and Cheng Si-chung are accused of preventing the legal burial of Xu Wen-jun last Saturday. Kwan and Cheng Si-chung were also charged with manslaughter. It's believed the student died after being injected with drugs. Kwan is also accused of trafficking in dangerous drugs. The case was adjourned to March. Police have arrested another man on suspicion of preventing the legal burial of the student and are searching for a 5th suspect.
Senior citizens will not be able to enjoy the $2 fare discount from mid-August next year unless they switch to JoyYou cards. Starting on August 25th, only JoyYou card holders will be entitled to concessionary fares. People who hold octopus cards for the elderly, even those which have their photos, will have to pay the full fare on public transport. The authorities urged those aged 60 or above to apply for a JoyYou card as soon as possible, as it takes up to 4 weeks for it to be mailed.
An elevated working platform has collapsed, crushing a man on Catering Road West in Chaklapkog. The victim, who was in his 30s, worked for an engineering company. He died an hour after the 10-ton platform fell on him this afternoon. Doctors and nurses from North Lantau Hospital were sent to the scene, but they were unable to save him.
A spate of funerals underlined the United Nations' concern about the rapid worsening of human rights in the Israeli-occupied West Bank. At least 300 Palestinians in the West Bank have been killed by Israeli troops since early October, when Israel launched an offensive against Gaza in retaliation for a Hamas attack. Over 21,000 Palestinians have been killed and more than 55 injured in the Israel attacks in nearly 12 weeks. Most of the casualties were women and children.
Misery grips hundreds of thousands of Palestinians whose homes in Gaza were demolished in Israeli airstrikes. Many are struggling to survive in makeshift tent cities far away from their hometowns. But nowhere is safe, says Osama El-Sand. His son was killed when his home in Gaza City was bombed. He sought safety in other parts of the besieged enclave, but said Israel attacked every area he went. Farah pleaded for the war to stop. Children are sleeping in the cold, he said. It's the height of suffering. Death is most merciful, he added. There is nowhere to go for Palestinians trapped in Gaza, without food, water, and medicines. Abu Muhammad Abu Jabal is desperate. He says he's heartbroken every time his children beg for bread, and he's unable to stop their hunger. Aid is trickling into Gaza, but it's not enough to meet the needs of over 2 million displaced Palestinians. In the midst of the suffering, volunteers are trying to lift the spirits of Palestinian children. At a refugee camp in Rafah, there are songs and games for children, many of whom lost their parents and siblings in the Israeli bombings. People who live in the camp love life, said volunteer Mahmoud Farhat. Our message to the world is, we want peace, love, and safety.
A storm is lashing large areas of Britain. Planes found it hard to land in Bristol. Storm Garrett lashed Scotland, Wales, and northern English cities with wind, rain, and snow. Thousands of people were left without power, and many roofs were blown off. Drivers were warned about floods.
There is a fair degree of surface water out there, so like I say, we're encouraging people to drive to the conditions, allow additional time to complete the journeys, take some essential kit with them, some water, some warm clothing, etc., a fully charged phone. And if they do come into any difficult situations, to phone the emergency services.
Hong Kong's exports have risen for the second consecutive month, edging up 7.4% in November from a year earlier to $386 billion. It was the biggest percentage increase since January last year. Shipments to other parts of Asia jumped 12%. Imports rose 7.1% to $414 billion, leaving the city with a trade deficit of $28 billion.
Hong Kong stocks have risen for the second day, with the Hang Seng Index jumping 2.5% to a 4-week high. Turnover on the second day of trading after the Christmas break reached $109 million. Tech stocks were among the major winners, with NetEase rising 3.4% and Tencent adding 2.8%. Electric car makers were also in demand. BYD was 4.1% higher, and Li Auto gained 5.5%.